Neil, Richard tweeted recently. He does that from time to time. Gold made an all-time high. S&P all-time high. Bitcoin all-time high. Ethereum hasn't made a new all-time high yet. Also, debasement comment down here for 150 years. Posted some charts. What do you think he's trying to tell us here?
That there's still room for, in fiat terms, the value to go up, and for Ethereum, right, and probably for Bitcoin too, as well as S&P and everything else. I mean, we're still overcoming the COVID money printing thing that happened. So there's so much more currency out there in the market. So our currency is being devalued tremendously. I mean, but the numbers he posted, like for instance, Bitcoin at 73K, it's really, if you think about it, for dollar buying power, you'd have Bitcoin have to be 100K today to have the same buying power it did a couple of years ago. So though it's up in fiat terms, it's really not where it needs to be in buying power like it was a couple of years ago. Same with Ethereum, the S&P 500, all the things. We all know that. We just go to the grocery store. Everything's up 30, 40, 50%. Depends on what you're buying. So inflation has just destroyed our buying power of our dollar. And that's where we are in reality. So Richard sees this. He knows this. And he's talked about this over and over again in the past about how fiat currency is bad. And we see that as it plays out in the markets. And so as these guys and these bigger players in the world and these governments and institutional money comes in and moving money around, they want more and more of the fiat because it takes more of it to buy the yachts and things they want, and as well as votes and everything else, right? So that's just where we're at in reality. So I think it's moving to grow in fiat terms for all these assets. It's just going to take, when the market is ready to deploy the capital and when they're ready to turn the money printers back on.
Yeah, I think that it's almost every time a tweet like this happens, you look back a few days or a week or so later, and like, wow, that was so obvious, like what was either going to happen or what made sense in the market or otherwise. And I don't think Richard would risk his social capital, like his reputation. Hashtag Richard Hart was right. He wants to be right as many times as possible, right? Is literal capital, if you believe that direction as well. Why would he risk it all on something that in the short term does make a lot of sense at face value of, oh, hey, look, the ETH trade is down right now, like that kind of thing. I'm just thinking, like, at what time frame, at what time horizon, like, why would billionaire genius founder guy, if he were the one to make a move like that, why would it turn out badly? Why would it sounds unreasonable, right? So like, why is buying ETH, at 3,600 or 3,800, whatever, at that time, and then dipping some, what is he looking forward to? And also, if he thinks, the SEC stuff, I think he also made a tweet about the SEC, ETH, FUD, all that too. I'll bring up here in a second. If he has that much confidence in ETF, how much confidence does he have in his own case that his Chad lawyers are going to nail that one as well? Like, doesn't that just strike you as just this confident judgment call right now?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, he was silent up until about a month and a half, 2 months ago, right? Hardly any just minor basic communication. Now he's all over Twitter. He knows what's up. He knows, he's like, all right, the worst is behind me. It's time to now get to work. I got all this other stuff out of my way, and now he's getting after it. And he knows that the ETH ETF, which pushed the price of ETH up, tremendously. But you got to remember, he had to get in when he got in, because when he gets out, he can't just dump it all at one lick. I mean, he'll destroy the price against himself, right? He's not going to do that. And so he's got to position himself to extract that value as he sees, if he's going to extract it and then move it somewhere else and die or whatever. He may put it in MakerDAO, or whatever his plan is, or go straight to PulseChain with it. Who knows? It's kind of hard to know the exact play there. That's only he knows what he's going to do with it. But there's a value there that he can use, and he will use for his own stuff. And just a matter of when and how he's going to deploy that capital. That's something we just won't know. We just have to just wait and see. But I've noticed he's due now for another pump based upon the chart. If you look at the chart trend's been, that's based on one of the PulseX pairs, took out the ratios. I think we're due for another pump here pretty shortly.
I do like pumps. Pumps are nice. Anyone in general, like thought experiment here. $1 billion comes into the PulseChain ecosystem. where could it go if the whale wanted to make prices appreciate with the core assets? Let's say, for example, on PulseChain, how could $1 billion of whatever ETH or DAI or anything, how could that affect, where could it go to positively affect price? Like, what do you think the plays would be if such a thing happened? Maybe ETH hits 8K, 10K, 11K, or whatever. Everyone who made trades in ETH benefited from it. They want to bring some money in. Where could it go that would make the most sense?
I mean, he would probably do some of the same things he did before. Obviously, buy his own tokens. Possibly, he bridges the ETH directly over and pairs with Pulse. Now you have a heavy, thick liquidity with ETH Pulse pair if you wanted that. If that's his goal, maybe not. I don't know. He may want a little more decorrelation there and keep them separate. That may be his play. Maybe he goes to MakerDAO and deposit as assets to back the DAI he has, right? Because that's part of their process there. I mean, if he continues the same trend he's been doing, he will be pushing the prices up by buying the assets, which is more than likely the best play. And as he does that, and buys them up, people will obviously dump to get their profits at whatever margin they wish to receive them in. And those who are long-term minded will be the ones making out because they'll be riding the price all the way up. And then if they choose to sell, they can sell it, at the higher points. That's their choice.
Yeah, I was looking at the ETH and ecosystem too, and the pairing. That's what he had the decorrelated tweet. So how do we reconcile this? So he goes on. I think we talked about it with you and other people as well before. It says decorrelated ? With Ethereum on, we assume referring to the PulseChain ecosystem. I think there was like price charts of that at the time. And then, so decorrelated, but then, major ETH buys by such, perhaps related whales. And then now it's like, okay, if the play would be to bridge and pair Pulse and ETH together, wouldn't that only make sense in a case where you expect ETH to continue to go up? And how do you think about that now?
I mean, if he's trying to correlate them, have more correlation, then yes. But I would say that if it was Richard's in his past movements, I would say that what he would do is when ETH hits 8, 10K, whatever he expects the all-time high to be, he swaps for DAI and then brings it over. Because right now, if you look at this chart we got pulled up, it's a roughly just a little over half of the value of ethers versus DAI. Well, if ETH goes to 10K, that's equivalent 1-to-1 in dollar terms right now on chain. So now they're both equally valued, right, in the ratios. So, but if he wants decorrelation, it'd be better to serve just to dump the ETH for DAI and come back and then buy his tokens with DAI. Therefore, we have more decorrelation, and PulseChain will move in its own accord. If that's his ultimate goal, which seems to be that's the trend. If not, he'd have probably brought more ETH over, but he hasn't. He's chosen DAI and using tools like MakerDAO and stuff to earn interest. That's just basically free money. He can bridge in at any time and use for different capital expenditures as well. Because it costs money to run the chain too. It's not cheap. Money's gonna come from somewhere.
Yeah, I just wanted to cover this. The LP advanced theory class you did here too. What did you take from this? What was your take from just reading this, talking about again? You double the DAI, price goes up 4x. Is there plays there with DAI that could happen?
Well, it's just ratio trading. I mean, I did whole videos on this stuff. It's just understanding ratios and how they work and how V2 liquidity works. I mean, just if you're when you trade looking at US dollar terms, you're missing out on the better values. I have friends and Tatis online. I'm talking about you, Phil, if he's listening about this. I say he's a USD guy. He looks at dollar terms, but I look at ratios because I'm not trying to get out right now. I'm trying to accumulate assets and increase positions. You can't do that looking at USD value. You got to look at ratios. And Richard's exactly right. I mean, this is how it works. I mean, this is nothing new. It's just the mathematical facts of V2 liquidity and how the prices move when you move up one side or the other. So as he buys up some stuff, it pushes the price of the other thing up. It's just the way it happens. And this is why we can, rest assured that having like him using DAI versus ETH is a better way, because you get better price action. Because if you use ETH in Pulse, what happens when ETH price goes down, and then the reverse it happens. So it's not as good of a play. That's why it's better to always to bring DAI in, not ETH. But you can have some ETH, but it shouldn't be the main pair.
That's what makes the most sense too. It sounds like is, the trade, get the price appreciation with ETH, convert it to DAI, and then bridge the DAI over, as some cadence or otherwise. And I mean, is it just market? I mean, do you think, is there $1 billion, if you would split that up into, I don't know, 10 million market buys per day over whatever time period, however much that comes out? Like what is the way to do it, to have a sustainable green candles? Is that the bootstrap that's like, okay, everyone, like, you see what's happening right now? Do you want to buy the same because you can see the buy pressure every day going up? Like what is the way to do that?
I think that is it. Now the amount will be a function of, all right, so Richard also wants the non-believers to exit soon. So maybe, and he's done it twice now, people pretty much sold everything back. We're almost back down to the pre-pump levels. Not quite, but we're getting up there. I mean, getting down to that point. I mean, we have some green candles and stuff here and there, but I think Richard wants the people who are not believers to go and get out. Give them one, maybe give them a 2X and let them get out. And the rest of us, we can say, hey, look, we see the X's coming in. And he starts doing these larger market buys, pushing the price up and pushing the price up. But every time he does it, though, he makes it harder and harder for the average guy to get more and more of the asset. So if you only have a couple grand and he pushes the price, you get a lot less asset now. You can buy. That's just the name of the game. And he's warned us and given us, several months to buy and accumulate. We had a big dip. You could have accumulated a lot at the bottom. I mean, well below sack price in both Pulse and PulseX. So we have plenty of time to accumulate. And so it's on us if we don't accumulate or did not accumulate. And now we're above sack rate on Pulse. We need to keep doing it. If you're not DCAing in, you're going to miss out, because when he blows the top of this thing off, it's really going to like explode, and people are just going to be playing catch up and chasing green candles because the FOMO will hit. And that's how you get the retail over.
Wow. Yeah, just imagine those 100 days. I did the math. I just want to double check, put it on the screen. 100 days. If we had $1 billion, 100 days of $10 million buys on the, like, just imagine, like, I believe he does want to blow this ecosystem up, like in a sense of like, show everyone you cannot afford to not participate in this. Like you need to come to PulseChain if you want to make money. And it turns out most people in crypto want to make money. Like that kind of event, why wouldn't that happen? Like, I mean, not that maybe this not particular one, but like just in general, why wouldn't there be some big event to happen to bring, again, everyone in, to get the adoption, to show them this is the biggest FOMO event in history, right? Like anything like this, if any kind of big event like this happens.
What if he, instead of doing, say, 100 days of 10 million each, what if he started off with, say, 1 million, then 1.2 million, then 1.3 million a day, and slowly ramped up the percentage of green candle growth as you go up? So, because he's buying against himself, obviously, because he pushes the price up. So by the time you get to the higher prices, then you could extend out, say, 150 to 200, maybe 300 days. What if he does it for a year of green candles? I mean,
Green candles.
I mean, it's unreal, right? But he could. He has enough money to do so. And he was hopefully exhaust the people who are the sellers, right? Who, once they hit their 10X are out or 20X are out or whatever, the price point is, where the big holders who have a lot, who are wanting to sell, they're exhausted, and the small guy, he can take advantage and change his life.
It's pretty amazing. I think I just want to note this while we're in the discussion, that you can have both trustless yield and be excited about mega whales buying coins. Like, I think you can have both. I think the only people, again, I talked about this, when we first started the stream, around the whole idea that, okay, maybe it attract people who don't share the same values as the community, stuff like that. I think that's totally valid. But the people who've been here a long time, who've been waiting, who already are in for these values, who aren't going to turn to, degeneracy or screw themselves or whatever, I think those people getting rewarded with this kind of thing, that seems like you know, if you were wanting to reward people for doing, you know, the right thing, in quote unquote, whatever that means to you, but like whatever that means to Richard, for example, wouldn't that be the way to do it? Is like, okay, obviously we got the great product. Let's get the green candles going. And then, hey, here's some buy pressure to make people, you cannot look away from this ecosystem.
Right. I mean, and then he's got like PulseX as a buy and burn. So now he's got a feature with this one of his tokens that gets bought and burnt. So what do you think is going to happen to that token, you know, over time? You know, it's going to have its own scarcity and its own, you know, metrics that will run a little different than Pulse. And incentive token, it's bonded but together heavily with the two other tokens. So it's always going to be pulled up, regardless if people dump it or not. It's going to keep being pulled up because it gets bought up, you know, also. So it's like, it's one of those things that it's almost, if you were smart, if you didn't need all the cash at once, and most people don't, if you just farmed the incentive token and never sold your assets, you'd be well off with what Richard's doing. I mean, that'd be the smart play. You know, why sell your assets when you can just, you know, take the yield token that he's provided you, he's buying himself, and just exit out that way and keep your native assets, let them grow.